Roald Dahl's timeless children's books have been subjected to some modern edits. The publisher, Puffin, has hired sensitivity readers to pore censoriously over Dahl's works and pluck out or replace words or passages that might impact negatively on a child's estimation of themselves or the wider world. Contemporary identity politics has been imposed upon the works, amounting to a kind of sanctimonious, flaky, literary vandalism. Augustus Gloop in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is no longer fat, he's enormous. Mrs. Twit in the Twits isn't ugly and beastly anymore, just beastly. Supposedly problematic references to gender have been excised. Boys and girls are now children. Mrs. Trunchbull in Matilda, once a most formidable female, is now a most formidable woman. The Cloud Men in James and the Giant Peach have become cloud people. The Oompa Loompas are no longer tiny, titchy, and no higher than my knee. They're just small. And they're not small men anymore, they're small people. The rationale here, apparently, is that the ambiguous semi-indentured servitude of the fantastical Oompa Loompas ought to be an equal opportunity semi-indentured servitude. Matilda no longer reads Rudyard Kipling, too emblematic of jingoistic, repressive colonialism, and now she reads Jane Austen. One of Dahl's witches, who posed as a cashier in a supermarket, is now a top scientist, a more suitable profession with which to emphasize to impressionable young girls that the STEM subjects of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are available to them. Words like crazy and mad have been removed due to their potential to cast mental health problems in a negative light. Even such everyday words as black and white have been altered. Characters no longer turn white with fear, and the big friendly giant no longer wears a black cloak, presumably to protect ethnic minority children from certain words that may subliminally compound undermining assumptions. The Roald Dahl Story Company said, "It's not unusual to review the language during a new print run, and any changes were small and carefully considered. However, hundreds of changes have been made to the original text. Most egregious of all, some passages have been imposed as substitutions for Dahl's original work. In previous editions of James and the Giant Peach, the centipede sings, 'Aunt Sponge was terrifically fat and tremendously flabby at that, and Aunt Spiker was thin as a wire and dry as a bone, only drier.' Dahl's charm, honed over many years, was to strike a very deep register with children, of lewd cheekiness and eccentricity, of gleeful gruesomeness, imbued with literary skill, subverting the prim, terrific, and tremendous exclamatory language of the performative, everyday grown-up world. Apart from the alliteration, terrific and tremendous, and fat and flabby, and the doubling of T and F in terrifically fat and tremendously flabby, there is the internal rhyme of fat, flabby, that, and spiker, wire, dryer. There is also a rollicking momentum to the rhythm of the lines. With such techniques, singular to this writer, the writing fizzes with energy, humour, naughtiness, and delicious vulgarity. The language capers. In the new Puffin edition, the verse has been removed, and in its place are the rhymes, "Aunt Sponge was a nasty old brute, and deserved to be squashed by the fruit," and "Aunt Spiker was much of the same, and deserves half of the blame." Go fuck yourselves. To edit out allegedly objectionable or problematic language, or language not suitable for a contemporary audience is one thing, but to impose yourself, whether you have any recognized talent or not, into a work whose aesthetic and creative merits have been proven and celebrated over generations, and rearrange the language in an ersatz pastiche of the original lines, divesting them of their literary dynamics, of rhythm, alliteration, and tone, it's astounding that someone could be so priggish and narcissistic, and that several people, at least, would actually supervise and affirm such changes. What these sensitivity readers fail to comprehend is that children have always been able to revel in, and to some degree integrate into their own evolving appreciation and command of language, the ebullient texture of Dahl's writing, and by scuffing out that texture, these phonies are undermining that experience, and those benefits. In The Witches, a paragraph explaining that witches are bald beneath their wigs ends with the new line, "There are plenty of other reasons why women might wear wigs, and there is certainly nothing wrong with that." The arrogance of this, to take works that have good values at their heart, but on a surface level are designed to appeal to the ribald, rascally, and giddily anarchic energies within children, and then add po-faced dull values into that delightfully roiling surface, while the greatest irony of all is that such people are the very adults Dahl would have encouraged children to delight in satirizing in giggling whispers. Puffin and the Roald Dahl Story Company made the changes in conjunction with Inclusive Minds, which its spokesperson describes as a collective for people who are passionate about inclusion and accessibility in children's literature. Alexandra Strick, whose name is almost preternaturally evocative of the kind of name Dahl would have given to a strict schoolmarm or slow-witted bureaucrat, is a co-founder of Inclusive Minds. She said they aim to ensure authentic representation by working closely with the book world and with those who have lived experience of any facet of diversity. You can abridge a text or choose to desist publishing it if it presents legitimately outdated racial stereotypes. That at least is a permissible space for debate. But to take canon, established and beloved text, with subject matter that teasingly and thrillingly satirizes cross-cultural, universal traits such as fatness or ugliness, and consider that requiring alteration, well, it sucks balls. A notice from the publisher sits at the bottom of the copyright page of the latest editions of Dahl's books. The wonderful words of Roald Dahl can transport you to different worlds and introduce you to the most marvelous characters. This book was written many years ago, and so we regularly review the language to ensure that it can continue to be enjoyed by all today. These Philistines, and that is the only word for them, don't understand the deeper connections that flow under the text. Children, overlooked, powerlessly bound by the strictures and routines of the adult world, will feel the excitement, like a lit fuse, of seeing the adult world undermined, the chubbiness, baldness, the wrinkles and warts, unfolding in tumbling, cavorting clauses. A lovely release for the thwarted and subdued temperament within every child, even the meek or well-behaved ones, especially them. Through the gruesomeness and the satire, there is also the underlying bond between author and young reader, the reassuring sense for a child that imagination and silliness doesn't dissipate into the dull conventions of adulthood for all. That here is a grown-up who can be preoccupied with and expound on snot and boils and fat kids and candy as much as any 8-year-old. Underneath the vulgarity, therefore, there is a genuine tender core there for children. These are notions, connections, ideas that these absolute prigs at Puffin and Inclusive Minds are too thick, too strident to properly comprehend. Thankfully, there are some rational voices out there. Suzanne Nossel, chief executive of PEN America, tweeted, "At PEN America, we are alarmed at news of hundreds of changes to venerated works by Roald Dahl and a purported effort to scrub the books of that which might offend someone. Those who might share specific edits to Dahl's work should consider how the power to rewrite books might be used in the hands of those who do not share their values and sensibilities. Roald Dahl was no angel, but this is absurd censorship," Booker Prize-winning author Salman Rushdie said in a Twitter post. Puffin Books and the Dahl estate should be ashamed. Let's hope this condemnation makes its way into the mainstream. In the meantime, it might be most apt to describe the personnel at Puffin and Inclusive Minds by invoking some of the terms used by Miss Trunchbull, the headmistress of Cruncham Hall School from Roald Dahl's Matilda. Blackheads, poisonous pustules, miserable little gumboils, suppurating little blisters, nauseating little warts, loads of garbage, witless weeds, empty-headed hamsters, squirming worms. Poisonous little pockmarks, unhatched shrimps, clotted carbuncles, blithering idiots, flea-bitten fungi, stagnant cesspools, bursting blisters, stupid globs of glue.